everyone, it's Danny. Welcome to another Casual Sundays. Today we will be discussing about packing peanuts. I promised you I would make this video for this Casual Sundays and you guys were happy that I would discuss about them because there seems to be a trend these days. There was a trend about 2.5 years ago when I was visiting forums and everybody was like talking about them. Then it kind of stopped and now again it seems to be trendy. I kind of love this. It makes this hobby less of a niche than it already is. So this is the trend right now. Everybody's talking about them. Everybody's loving them. And I feel very excluded because I actually hate them. But I'll tell you why I hate them. I'll tell you how I think they should be used and why they should work in some cases and why they absolutely don't work in my case, for example, so in other cases. But before we start the subject, I would just like to thank our supporter this week on orchidnature.com, Danielle. Thank you so much. You are very generous. I appreciate it a lot. And I really hope that in the future you'll enjoy my videos and they will help you out with your orchid growing. Okay, let's get back to the subject. Now, if you've never read or heard anything about using packing peanuts with orchids, well, the main idea is to use a layer of packing peanuts at the bottom of a orchid pot. This theoretically creates more ventilation at the bottom of the pot, but most importantly, it keeps this, let's say, excessive water from staying at the bottom of the pot too long, because usually the top of the pot dries faster than the bottom of the pot. Pretty logical why. Gravity pulls down on the water, so you'll always have a bigger quantity of water at the bottom of the pot than on the top of the pot. So theoretically, packing peanuts are a good thing to use in any orchid pot, in any situation. They're practically the life-saving solution everybody has been waiting for. Not really. Now, I have to tell you, I have been using something like packing peanuts. I use styrofoam. I think this is how it's called. Anyway, it's the same thing as the packing peanut. It just does not have that shape. So I've used it with a Cattleya orchid. I know you haven't seen it on many occasions, but it's there. And I have some footage on the screen right now when I repotted this Cattleya. And I actually mentioned in this video, wow, this Cattleya was potted a long time ago because I was using these things. So anyway, I tried to use them and they were absolutely horrible for me. So I'll tell you my reasons why they did not work for me in my environment, and I'll tell you in which cases they can work. So first of all, let's start with the media. As I was saying, the packing peanuts are used because the bottom of the pot stays more moist than the top of the pot. Now, the types of media which usually do this are bark in particular, but also charcoal, also coconut husk. So these types of, let's say, medias that are not very water absorbent compared to sphagnum moss, for example, but they're still chunky. Anyway, you get the idea. They're not a sponge. So these types of media usually will do this. So when you're dealing with a media like bark or charcoal or stuff like that, these stuff can be used. In my case, I was indeed using bark media, so everything's okay up until now. Now, what forums didn't mention when using packing peanuts is that none of them had extra ventilation holes in their pots, and I was already creating extra ventilation in my pots because I wanted this media to be more airy. If I didn't have these ventilation holes, the bottom of the pot for me would have stayed much more moist than it is right now, and this is second day after watering. As a side note, this will go away tomorrow, but we'll reach to that. So in my case, I had extra ventilation holes until the bottom of the pot. And this already is the first enemy of the packing peanut. Third of all, how were the orchids kept when using packing peanuts? Well, they were practically sitting on a surface, whether it was a dish or a shelf or whatever. So they were sitting without any ventilation underneath. In my case, my Cattleya orchid was kept hung. So underneath there was a lot of ventilation. And this is the second enemy of the peanut thingy. Next, how was the pot of the particular orchid? Well, it was flat. In my case, it was flat as well. But now imagine that you have a pot with an air cone. That's even more ventilation added. Bonus the ventilation holes, bonus the fact that I was keeping my orchid hanging, not in a decorative container. So third major enemy of the peanut packing thingy is the air cone pot. Okay, let's return to the media here. I was saying that usually bark, charcoal, and all these types of medias usually promote more moisture at the bottom than on the top. And in my previous Casual Sundays, I was saying that I don't repeat advice, even if it's expert advice, because I just don't. So here is the deal. Sphagnum moss does not react the same as bark, charcoal, and coconut husk. Sphagnum moss is a different beast. This thing is so water absorbent that I'm willing to bet that you will never have excessive amounts of moisture here and very dry media at the top, unless you make a mixture of it. But if you have pure sphagnum moss, this will never happen because sphagnum moss defies gravity. It actually doesn't defy gravity. It's very logical what's going on, but it was dramatic at least. Speaking of which, I need to cut this pot more because this tuber wants to come out and hug me. So enemy number 4, I think it's 4, for the packing peanut is sphagnum moss. Okay, let's return to the Camellia orchid that had a layer of styrofoam, packing peanuts, whatever you want to call them, at the bottom. The problem was that because I had extra ventilation holes, I had indeed bark, but it was very airy. I was keeping it hanging in my balcony. It's always well ventilated, drafty, and I'm pretty sure I know how to water orchids, in the sense that I don't usually leave them in a tray of water with this much water on the bottom. The packing peanut not only was useless to me, it was absolutely hell for me. And I'll tell you a little story about my back. You don't know this, but he's a grouchy old man. And whenever I overdo it, he's like, "Girl, you need to sit down right now, or else it's gonna be hell." And I'm like, all right, just calm down. So because I was forced to water that Camellia orchid so often because of the damn packing peanuts, I hated it, my back hated it, and you know what? My mom hated me because she was forced to water that Camellia orchid when I was gone on vacation. And whenever I would come back, she would be like, "You didn't repot that orchid yet?" "Nope, I'll repot it by the next time you go on vacation because I ain't watering that." And I'm not joking, my mom literally told me to repot that freaking orchid, even though my mom does not have back problems like I do. So you can imagine what I went through. Oh gosh, sometimes I really wish I would film myself because I'm doing all these crazy movements. I really want to share them with you because they're so silly. But it's not the time yet. You're not ready yet. Anyway, returning to our story. Let's draw some important conclusions here. Packing peanuts can work in specific environments, in specific conditions. I would go as far as to say that if you don't have ventilation holes in your pot, packing peanuts might help you. If you have a pot with bark chips or coconut husk or charcoal, packing peanuts might work for you. Although if you keep your orchid hanging, they're pretty much useless, especially if you have an air cone pot, because the amount of ventilation underneath is a lot greater than if you actually keep it on a table. Not to mention that if you keep your growing area very well ventilated, I mean, there are too many enemies for these guys. They're gonna be killed. Or dry environment, because some people have very dry environments. Oh my god, if you have a dry environment, don't touch these. Really, no. Okay, let me rephrase that. So if you have an environment which is pretty humid, it's not well ventilated, you don't have extra ventilation holes in your pot, you are using bark or charcoal or coconut husk, which is known to create this difference of moisture throughout the pot, then I think packing peanuts will actually do you good. It's all about experimenting. You can experiment with this. However, if you have very similar conditions with mine, if you are using sphagnum moss, if you're keeping your orchids hanging, if your environment is not very humid and is actually intermediate to warm, most probably you'll not be very satisfied with packing peanuts because you might have to water your orchid quite more often than other orchids which do not have packing peanuts. So take all of these factors into account. Not to mention, if you have a bad back, a bad leg, a bad something, watering too often will actually harm the parts of your body that hurt. Really, trust me. And before we end the subject, I would like to touch base a little bit on clay pots as well. I don't use clay pots. I will be using them from next year because they're kind of cute. So what I'm gonna say now is just what I'm guessing. It's not something I tested, but I'm guessing, considering that I have the ceramic cylinder and the ceramic slab, I am guessing the clay pots are more porous, so practically they're very ventilated. So practically it's like having the ventilation holes. So if you have ceramic pots, which are already very ventilated, maybe packing peanuts might not be for you. Again, you have to consider this and consider your environment. And also, if you have a clay pot with full sphagnum moss, and actually this was the discussion with my viewer, a full sphagnum moss filled clay pot, no, don't use packing peanuts. First of all, the clay pot is very, very ventilated. It will start to transpire water like crazy. Also, you have the sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is very water retentive. You will never have more water at the bottom than at the top. It's practically the dream if you have this. There's really no need for you to use the packing peanuts. The only, let's say, viable solution for packing peanuts, or viable excuse that I see, is if you keep your orchid in a tray of water, with water, like this, something like that. This is the only way that I can see these packing peanuts viable. But then again, keep in mind, this is just my opinion, and my opinion always tries to find the logic and the simplicity in life, because I'm lazy, let's say, and I have back pains, maybe. So this is just my opinion. If you are acquainted with packing peanuts and you absolutely have a totally different opinion, or you just want to stick to the expert advice that you read, do put packing peanuts, because there's no reason for you to lose sleep over this. But if you kind of understand where I'm going with this discussion, and if you have back issues as severe as I do, then yeah, think again before using packing peanuts, because yeah. Anyway, before I let you go, I would like to direct you to a video made by our friend here on YouTube, Orchids and a Duchy. And this is the first time that I feature you, Andrea. And you don't see me now, but I'm kind of waving. Hi. Alrighty, so you can click on the annotation here. You can watch a video on packing peanuts from Andrea. So she has a discussion regarding packing peanuts. If you are using packing peanuts, you need to be careful what type of packing peanuts you're using, because some of them are biodegradable, and she has a video on this and how to recognize them, and I think it's very useful. If you are that type of person which uses packing peanuts and you find use in them, do check out this video so you don't wake up with mush inside your orchid pot overnight. Alrighty guys, thank you for joining me on this casual Sunday. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more videos from me, simply subscribe to my channel, because I post on a daily basis and some of my videos are actually interesting tutorials. At least that's the rumor. I only blab on Sundays. And also feel free to leave me your questions, suggestions for videos, or topics to talk about in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you either with a comment or with a video or with a casual Sunday discussion. If you click on the left side of your screen, you'll be directed to orchidnature.com, where you'll find care sheets, identification sheets, and also you can talk to us in the forum section. And on the right side of your screen, you can click to watch another orchid video, this time a tutorial. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!